Hello and welcome to the Holy Hour podcast. It's the bi-weekly All Cure podcast. I'm Gavin. We have a wonderful episode for you guys out there tonight. We have something a little different, and I'm very excited to bring a whole crowd in. We got a packed house and some familiar faces and some first timers to the show and some variations on that. So welcome. We got Arusha, Suzi, Craig, and Ian. And so I'm going to go down the line and introduce you guys, if that's cool. Of course, Arusha, welcome back up in New York. Arusha's been hooking us up with wonderful content since the early days of this podcast. And she's reclaiming her spot on our very own Hollywood Squares that we used to joke about. But
Hollywood Squares, here I come.
And this was even
Holly Cure Squares. How do you say?
Yeah. So and this was before we even did Zoom. So now you really literally have a square up there that you are our very own Paul Lind, and reclaiming that square again. So welcome back, Arusha.
Thank
for
you.
setting all this up. And then we have our expert panel of bootleggers that we brought on, especially for this episode. We have Suzi all the way in the UK. Welcome back, technically returning to the show. So hello, Suzi.
Hi there. Hi, everyone.
And you were on the episode with Arusha fairly recently, it feels like, talking about the Top Tour and bootlegs, wide range of topics, but I really loved that episode. So it's a total pleasure to officially meet you and have you back on the show. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Hi, thank you.
Yeah. And welcoming Craig to the show. I don't believe, unless we had a snippet from you via Arusha at some point, I don't believe we've had you on yet, so apologies if we have. But welcome to the show, Craig, out in California. And we're covering a lot of territory here. It's all the way from West Coast to the UK. So welcome, Craig.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Great to be
Hey,
here.
totally. And the man of the hour, we got Ian over here. We've all brought you here to interrogate you on this topic of this experiment that you've been working on. But Ian goes way back, buddies with Arusha. We've had you on a snippet way back early on with Arusha, talking about it was the early 2016 tour. Mm-hmm. And just further loving hearing Arusha's contacts and conversations throughout all these Cure travels that she does so well. And awesome to have you back, officially meet you.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really enjoy your podcast, actually, quite a bit.
Thank you.
In the top episode with Suzi, I was super fascinated by that whole podcast, and I think I had kind of recently gone back and listened to some of the top shows, I think right before you had that podcast, so I'm sure it was probably some of yours, but I was just, that tour is really
awesome,
an oddly fascinating
Yeah, that's nice. That's kind of when my obsession for getting to every gig on a whole tour really kind of took hold. So yeah, that was nice to bring back those memories, I guess.
Yeah,
excellent. Yeah, that's so cool, just hearing the stories that stretch all the time and eras and lineups and everything. So cool. So speaking of which, that fits wonderfully into why we've all why are we here? What is going on? So Arusha tipped us off to this idea that you had started going through as many or every Cure bootleg possible, listening to them in order.
As many as I could find. So I found a website, or a YouTube channel.
Okay.
Wait, Ian, when was this and why? What year did it start?
So it started sometime in the fall, late 2020. So I probably 6 months into COVID.
Okay.
And we had we're like, what are we going to do every Friday and Saturday night? And we had started we would sit down and we would play bills, and we would sit down and pay all the power bills and the credit card bills as like some way to entertain ourselves. I don't know. But so one day I said, I'm going to listen to all the shows from Faith because the 40th anniversary is coming up. thinking that my wife would look at me and be like, all right, you can listen to one and then let's just move back to listening to normal records. But so we listened to it, and we listened to the whole tour over the course of a month or two that we could find. And it was really enjoyable. And then I thought, oh, we should go back and just start at the beginning and not really thinking about how long it would take or how many shows there are. So we're up to about 2 years now, and I've listened to about 700 shows. So it's pretty much kind of one a day.
Okay.
You look so normal as well.
Huh?
You look so normal as well.
Yeah.
Can I just ask? So, are you listening to these? I assumed you've got like a big collection of tapes. Are you listening to all of these from a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
It's collected them all together.
Yeah. Someone is like posted.
Right, okay.
As far as I could tell, I've also, to find the set list, I was going to the
Setlist
Pure
FM.
Setlist
Yeah.
website out of Germany, which was really helpful because I could see they had listed what shows were recorded or that they knew of. So I've been able to find about 95% of most of the known recordings. There's definitely some sound checks.
Yeah.
Some stuff from like 79, I think, that I just couldn't find any.
So you're including in your listening sound checks when available.
Yeah, which some of them there didn't seem to be a lot of. And a lot of the sound checks that I found were pretty bad quality. So
I've not heard mine then.
You know, as interesting as hearing like Bird Mad Girl from the Prayer Tour, the sound quality of the recording is that someone was probably standing next to an open door 300 yards away from it. Some of them sound really amazing.
Yeah.
Most of that Prayer Tour, you know, as a whole, sadly is not as good a quality as you'd think. I think there's people who have put together collections of the best, you know, if there's some soundboards and things, and they've kind of synthesized a concert out of the ones that are good. But yeah, unfortunately, the Prayer Tour is not great quality.
It's not. I started, I kept a list of all the shows that I thought either were good enough because of the sound or were interesting enough because it was maybe an extremely weird version of a forest, or maybe the first time they were playing a song, or sometimes Robert would completely miss the words to multiple songs on some nights, and you would get these incredibly strange versions of songs.
Awesome.
So I started saving kind of the ones that I thought were the best that I would certainly sit down and listen to. And I think the Prayer Tour, I only found 13 of them where I thought they sounded good enough. Whereas like the Top Tour, I think I had found 18, even though there were a lot less shows available.
Huh.
So which ones, Ian, based on what the prior Holy Hour podcast with Suzi, which ones do you think those are Suzi's bootlegs? Is there any way to tell? Suzi,
I would
verify?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume there's some of the recordings will say who the initials were. Like I know I've listened to quite a few from JJ in America in the mid-90s.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about the Top though.
The Top, I think I mean I'm sure probably half of them are probably yours, I would guess. I mean,
maybe, yeah. So, I mean, lots of people recorded back in the 80s, so it's hard to know without actually sort of comparing it, I guess. But if they're good, there's a good chance there.
Yeah. might as well take credit for them, right?
The qualities really was, even back then, was really important to use the best recording equipment you could get and stand, you know, right in front of the speaker and try and do it as best you could, you know, and not have the tape run out halfway through a song or something like that. You know, it's important to.
Yeah, I had noticed years ago, every time I would buy a bootleg album of the Faith Tour, I could never get a complete version of All Cats Are Gray. because every recording, I think, that I kept finding, they would play it around 40 to 45 minutes into a set, and people's tapes would end.
Oh,
so sometimes you would get these near soundboard All Cats Are Gray where the crowd is quiet because maybe they're bored, but it sounds great, and then it just cuts off and you're like, oh no, like that would have been the great one.
Damn. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, so you start to notice these little patterns and stuff like that, I bet, doing them back to back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of little follow-up questions on what you said there I had of like, so are you pretty much exclusively going by that YouTube page then? Or are you kind of
I think there were a few shows I think that I tried to find recordings of, and I may have found like one that I hadn't been able to find through that guy, but then I think it turned out to be a pretty bad recording of like I had on the Door Tour show or something. Like,
Awesome. And did you say you were taking notes then as it goes, or just kind of mentally?
I sort of did sometimes. And I thought of this after the invite for this. I thought, oh God, I'm gonna have to like think of what notes would I have jotted to myself as I did this. I found some interesting things. Both times that they debuted Siamese Twins, the first time Lowell played it in, I believe it was in London, and then the first time that, and I don't remember where, it might have been Elephant Fair or something. Both of them screwed up the drum line really bad. So it does not, you're not even sure what song they're trying to play. I just thought that was a very strange thing.
So it's just like extra kind of rambly, and then they'd kind of get in the groove eventually.
And I think that especially the show with Andy, somewhere in '83, it might have been the first show that they were playing.
Bournemouth, the little warm-ups for the Elephant Fair, Bournemouth and Bath, they were great shows. They were tiny.
There were some songs on that. There were some versions of songs that were really great, and other ones where you're like, whoa, they got to practice that one a few more times.
Yeah.
Suzi, was that one of the ones I saw you had a post of a picture of a tiny little venue? I don't know. I saw it somewhere in the socials.
I don't know, not a poster, but yeah, I was at those two little warm-ups. That's that comment I made on Facebook a day or so ago that you commented on. That was those little gigs. Bournemouth and Bath were the warm-ups for the Elephant Fair, and they were just these tiny little clubs with 150 people in. But Bournemouth didn't even have a stage. It was just the floor and the crowd like right in front of them. It was so amazingly smooth.
And that's the one. That's the one
that's the first time Andy would have drummed with them, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the one, Arusha, that I had mentioned to you, that it was an odd recording because you really felt like you were sitting at the table listening to it the way it's recorded.
Yeah.
You can hear in the venue. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, you get like those like college party, vibes. You even just see like those photos from back in those kind of shows where everyone's just like standing. It looks like a basement show at a college, and I'm like, oh my God.
I like those bootlegs in the early days. I mean, it's one thing if you're you're hearing a stadium show and there's too much noise, but like Suzi, some of the ones that you had, I think from Fool's Dance or whatever. I mean, I don't know. It just takes me to the place.
Yeah. And they were so small. In the gaps between the songs, the clapping would start, and then the only voice would be someone going, "Hey, you recording that?" Oh God, yes, shut up.
It's amazing to me that there's so much coverage of those early shows. I mean, didn't Walkmans kind of come about in the like 83, 84? Yeah, we've got coverage of shows that time and before that of people actually recording.
Yeah.
The recordings from '79 are all pretty shitty, I think. But by the Faith Tour, and the first time I recorded one was probably December '81, and by '82 the Sony professional Walkman had come out, so you were getting really good ones.
So explain me to non-taper people. What does a Walkman have to do with anything?
Well, like you could record it on your mum's dictaphone that she used for work, or you could buy a £400 top of the range Sony Walkman and the best microphone available, and stand in the right place and go for it and try and do it properly, I guess. And then by the early 90s, there was DAT recorders out, so you could that was like a proper full digital format. So, but it was more about getting right in front of the speaker, really, and getting your recording level right.
So the Faith tour is the one that I dream about. Man, I wish if I could go back in time and see any tour, that would be the one. So I'm really curious, Suzi, like, is it as mystical as I imagine it, where everything's like overcast and it's a hint and there's never any sun and everything's gray and it's like the album cover and
they certainly set the scene that way. I've through Facebook been asked about the Carnage Visors film quite a lot.
Yeah.
Which is because basically anyone who wasn't there has never seen it, apart from a few stills. And weirdly, I remember that really well, and the Airlock one for the Pornography tour as well. And Carnage Visors was really sort of set the scene for this sort of gloomy. It was great. It was and all these weird little stick figures repeating over and moving slightly, and I mean, it was really boring. You wouldn't want to see it too many times, but it really, it did set the scene for. I mean, I suppose, Faith has a real special place in my heart, and I suspect in any proper hardcore Full Cure fan's heart. Faith is the one that I lay in my bedroom to and listen to over and over and over and over and fell asleep to it. Yeah. But I suppose it depends on your age, doesn't it? I mean, the first time I saw them was 1980, so I was just at that age to, be lucky enough to go to all that other stuff. So. And to live in England where I could see them regularly rather than be stuck in some massive country that, I understand the challenges of living in America or wherever, because it's.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Faith tour, they only played like 10 shows here, if that.
Yeah.
It's very.
Ian, I remember when you were telling me about your project, you were saying about the beginning, like the early Cure sound. What you were talking about with me was their development and how you could hear them getting better.
The development that you hear between Robert, Simon, and Lowell, pretty much kind of the second that Matthew leaves the band, I think because they were forced to, they didn't have a keyboard to add extra sound, that the three of them were very forced to be very tight. And some of the versions of especially M and In Your House throughout, especially the second half of the Faith tour, they're mesmerizing. Like every show, they're absolutely perfect. There were a few times, I think, in Your House, you would hear, sometimes he would screw up the guitar line and hit an extra note, and he would do it again on purpose to make a pattern of that screw up so that you wouldn't notice, and then eventually he would just go back to the way it was. It's awesome. Really astounding how good the three of them were. And even on Pornography, as stuff is starting to fall apart, there are still some really solid shows in there. That, I mean, just some of the versions of Forrest and other voices they're just amazing.
I'd kind of forgotten that Robert used to play bits of keyboard, didn't he, around that time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I have to say, of all the songs, the two songs that they kind of dropped over time, or at least up to 96, I'm not sure how often they've played them since then, but the two that I think are the most missed for me are Accuracy, which I always liked Accuracy, but it wasn't one of my 3 favorite songs on Three Measuring Boys. It was just kind of there. But after listening to it repetitively on the 17 and the Faith tours, it's really good. The other one is Splintered in Her Head. Those are really, really good. And you can hear, I think, where bands like Mogwai, when they talk about the guitar of Robert Smith, those live versions of Splintered in Her Head, where there's just a wall coming from his guitar, is pretty amazing.
I can see from that poster behind you, you've got the same poster as me, that 8 appearances one.
Yeah,
I've got that one as well. And that I went to that Hammersmith Palais one where they did Splintered in Her Head there. That was a great show.
Oh, and that was a great show.
Yeah, it's good recording, that, isn't it? Yeah.
Nice.
Right, because I think that has an early version of the Hanging Garden and the Figurehead, I believe.
I was just holding it. Hang on, where's it gone?
Maybe 100 years.
So so you were saying when Hartley left, so what about from like tell us about like what happened? Like what did you hear? What have you gleaned from those early years?
I think they become very, very tight. The amount of mistakes become less and less. And when there are mistakes, you're sometimes led to believe that they're maybe on purpose, because Robert sometimes would just go off in the middle of a song where it wasn't really, he's not doing a Forest the way a Forest is supposed to be done, or whatever song it is. But for the most part, they're very tight. Like, I think they could probably all just play with their eyes closed and never at that particular moment. I think with Matthew being gone and there's only 3 of you, if you make a mistake, it's very apparent.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So
Cool. I guess the flip side of that, then, as it goes into the pornography ones and knowing their history and stuff, do you kind of hear them falling or the cracks starting to come, or they keep it musically super solid?
I think there's some songs, I think a few of the songs on pornography I don't think really reach greatness the way songs on Faith reached in the live setting. I mean, it was not as long of a tour.
Right.
But I think for the most part, outside of a few shows, especially the last one, the performances are pretty solid.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised that the few shows after they had the fight, I expected those to be not good. And I think other than the last one, which is a little sloppy, the other ones were actually very good.
But the cracks in the pornography tour were coming on quite early, because when they played the English tour, the Leicester show they did, which was the second to last one of them, Robert's parting comment was, "That's the last time you'll ever see us."
Yeah.
Another good take, I think you'll find.
He says that a few times. He says that.
That was the start of every show.
America in '89 as well, or something along the lines of "This is the last thing," or whatever.
In '96 and 2000.
Yeah. Well, no, but he literally does actually say it on, instead of the interview where it's all going to end.
So
he was
Ian,
angry for whatever reason, or being dramatic or whatever. I don't know.
And then now it's always "see you again," at least for the last 20 years or so.
Yeah. See you real soon. And it's like, it's been like 8 years.
Yeah.
So when did you first see them, Ian?
In '89.
Right.
Was the first one. And I actually, through listening to this, and I may be wrong because it was a song that I never took a lot of notes about, but I think the odd thing about the first time I saw them in Phoenix is that I'm pretty sure it's the first time they ever played "Why Can I Be You" as just a 3.5-minute song. Every other version of "Why Can I Be You," they're all the 6 to 10 minute long, with singing of Hall & Oates and Moon River and Love Cats.
Oh my God. You mean for that tour?
No, throughout. Like actually last week I listened to one where they literally started playing Spinal Tap in the middle of Why Can I Be You. They do Why Can I Be You into the Love Cats, into, I want to say something else that then ends up becoming Spinal Tap. I think it's a Spinal Tap song. That dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Anyways,
yeah.
and then they go back into Why Can I Be You.
But one interesting thing, that weird '97 American Legion Hall show, they opened with "Why Can't I Be You," which is really odd.
It is.
I wonder why they did that.
There's one
little extra Coke that night. It's like, let's
it
do
was
it.
A singles night.
Let's come out blazing with Why Can't I Be You?
Yeah.
It was pretty much all singles that night. So let's start with some. Yeah.
And I think isn't that the only time they ever played the Close to Me Closer mix, I think.
Oh wow.
Oh.
I think that's the only time they played that.
Dang.
Yeah, so I heard the only version of Lullaby where they played it as an extended version sometime in the middle, somewhere in the middle of Europe, sometime in May or June. They played Lullaby with like as a 12-inch version.
But wait, what year are we in?
In 80, that was in 89.
89.
Yeah.
What did you think of 89 in general? Because I will say, you know, I saw my first Cure show in 86, and I saw 2 in 87, and then I stupidly boycotted 89. But and so it's like, you know, Disintegration is the best, blah blah blah. But actually, when I listen now to the bootlegs, I don't think they're the best ever.
There was a feel about it, I think. I saw 11 Prayer Tour shows, and it had just a magic about it. Trust me, it was brilliant.
I'm sure it was, but
I'll definitely say that the impact of Plainsong opening does not come across on the tapes at all. That it, you know, no matter how good the sound quality is on some of those shows, it doesn't have that full impact of seeing it for sure.
I guess along those lines, one of the questions I had for you was, as you start getting into shows that you know you were at, and then you're re-listening to a bootleg, how's it compare, like, to the actual experience? Do you feel like it does it justice, or like you're saying with Plainsong?
You know, I think some of them are the Sacramento and the San Jose.
Fuck yeah,
1996. Those were, listening to them again, they were just as good as they had been in person. I think maybe the first show I saw, I don't know if it was as good as I thought it was. I think I remember there's a flub somewhere during the encores that, of course, I didn't notice in person.
Right.
Also, the speaker caught on fire the first time I saw him, so that was a little strange.
Yeah. That was my first show as well. I was just listening.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great.
I was listening to it the other day, and it's weird how you can listen to so many shows, but I don't know if this is just a psychological thing, but it's like you can feel the air in the show. Like when I listened to that show, I remembered being at Compton Terrace in Phoenix in '89. But if I'd listened to another Prayer Tour show, I wouldn't feel that. I don't know if that's some psychological thing, but it actually took me back when I listened to it the other day.
Well, I think that's what Suzi was noting too, is that, it's like, no matter how great a bootleg is, it's never going to replace being there. Because it's you, it's how it's the time of your life, it's what's going on, it's the weather, it's the band, it's the crowd, it's the cocktails, whatever.
Especially if the speaker starts catching on fire, that's like an omen or something. It's like, oh man, this is you don't get
I guess with those Prayer Tour shows, it felt for me like having loved them with all the dark stuff of the faith and pornography, and then the more poppy stuff of, you know, Top and Head on the Door, and it just felt like with Disintegration and then that tour, it just felt like they kind of come home a bit for me, and it would all come right again.
That's cool. Yeah, I can see that.
No, I mean the Kiss Me stuff was great, but you know, the disintegration was.
So I was actually wondering, Suzi, because you've taped for so long, one of the things I noticed was the sound quality of the shows as they're playing the smaller venues like in Faith and even through the Top, you'll get really great sound quality at some of these shows where, you know, it's just someone standing in the room. And from the Head on the Door onwards, especially the Head on the Door tour, the sound quality of a lot of the shows are not very good. And I wonder if it's that the technology that you're using to record had not caught up with how much bigger their speakers were.
Yeah, certainly in England, the venues were getting bigger by 85. Some of them were big boomy venues like Whitley Bay, and that was an ice rink, I think.
Oh, that's a great bootleg though, actually.
Yeah, didn't they do? Yeah, and the Brighton's a good one as well. I think you'll find where they did "I Dig You" with the Postman, Frank Bell.
Cool.
That's worth a mention, isn't it? The rarities. They actually got the Postman on to sing.
Nice.
The B side of Cult Hero.
I know.
Yeah. Sorry, going off on one. But they're not. Yeah, you're right. The tapes from that tour aren't so good. But I to be honest, I didn't actually tape so many. There was a group of us, but I always used to like to jump around with it for shows. So some of them were literally my mates stood next to me rather than actually me. Because I used to.
The venues certainly make a difference, right? I mean, they played a lot of basketball arenas in the U.S. and those have terrible acoustics. I mean, you can't. In the back, it sounds awful. It's just like an echo chamber. You've got to be. If you want to make a good audience tape in a basketball arena, you've got to be pretty close. If you're
Craig, when did you start? What was your?
I started taping, and so first show was '89. Then I saw the Phoenix '92 show. '96 is when I started following them around and taping. Mm-hmm. So I taped like 10 shows in '96, and then a few in '97, and then 8 or 10 in 2000, and then a few in 2002. So yeah, that was the bulk of the shows that I did were 96 and 2000, and a lot of those were basketball arenas, right? And so you got to be careful. And one that was particularly bad was the Albuquerque show in '96, which I think my recording is the only one that exists, and I missed Want. But that thing was in a rodeo arena, and unfortunately I wasn't on the floor. I was up in the stands, and it's very echoey. There's nothing you can do about that.
Did you tape to follow, or did you follow to tape, or is it just like, would you have followed them even if you weren't taping?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't tape anymore. I haven't taped a show in a long time, and I follow them. So yeah, definitely would.
That Albuquerque show is funny because when I was listening to the recording, the beginning of the recording is Want starting, and it's very muffled, and I can hear you probably asking for directions how to get to your seat.
Oh, getting to my seat, yeah.
And then throughout the show, I can hear your girlfriend at the time talking, which was very strange because I know that voice. So I was like, what? I was like, oh my God, I know who's talking. I was a little afraid when we got to Washington, D.C. I remember you were taping, and I remember when either they played the Figurehead or the Kiss, I screamed really loud and then thought, oh God, Craig's recording, and now that's going to be like me screaming like, hell yeah, yo buddy.
I had no idea. And I think, Ian, you said you heard me, screaming at one of those 96 shows, but I had no idea that Craig was taping. I was completely oblivious.
But I mean, that's kind of
because it was very illegal then, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of the cool part, though, when you listen back to those of like the little chatter and stuff. Even though it is at times annoying if you get like the drunk girl just singing out of tune through the, it's just like, oh God, stop. Or like I've talked about it before. Like one of my earliest tapes I had, and it was from like Faith Era or something, and it was just after one of the real slow ones, and like the dude in the crowd like taps him. He's like, what's going on, man? He's like, don't worry, as soon as they play their old stuff, it'll get fun again. Like say, why are they playing all these boring stuff? Just like that reference of like, well, when they play their old stuff, it's like now in context of their old stuff. It's like, that's pretty funny. But so I mean, sometimes that could be fun when you hear the hooting and hollering, and it's kind of puts you in the concert vibe, even if it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think people didn't seem to be as into like the Caterpillar in 1984 and you can hear it in the crowd reactions in shows.
Everyone's like, I'm gonna get a beer.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's funny now because listening to shows that I was at, and as songs are playing, picturing that I had gone and gotten a beer because I didn't want to listen to Return. And the really strange thing is that in the last month, I've realized that Return is no longer my least favorite song by them. And I actually don't dislike the song anymore. The live versions are significantly better than the album. The album version is not a good song, I think.
It's not right.
Either that or I've been brainwashed by hearing some of the songs so many times that I just think maybe I like them more than I do. I don't seem to mind Mint Car at all either. Cool. I think the only song I feel at this point that I've gotten a little tired of actually is Never Enough.
Yeah.
Which they don't even play at every show where I'm at, but I don't know, there's something about it that just doesn't click with me. And I know I've seen it live and it's been really good, but
yeah.
Where are you at again right now?
I'm in Vienna at probably about 10 shows from the end of the swing tour.
Okay.
So in 2000, 2001, so 2.5 years to do how many years?
To do about 20 or 15 years essentially. Took about 2 years.
I had a few specific questions then. So do you have a projected when this will end, or do you
God, I guess I don't know how big some of the tours are. I know that Wish and the Swing Tour were the two longest. So I would guess in maybe 2 years I would be done.
And then you'll have all the new shows to add on to it too. So
yeah, I mean, the other thing is that a lot of the shows now, the shortest ones are about 2 hours and 15 minutes. Yeah. And those are usually significantly shorter than the night before will be 2 hours and 55 minutes. So I'm pretty much in the 2.5 hour range now for shows, whereas a lot of before, a lot of the Faith shows are only 75 minutes maybe.
Yeah. When did they officially cross like the 2 hour mark, you think? I was trying to put that together as far as would it be like
87 probably, 86, 87, somewhere in there.
87 became double tapes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, I think the Rome 1987 show I think is particularly good, but I think the version of Faith is like over 10 minutes long. A Forest is like 15 minutes, and 100 Years is at least 7 or 8 minutes.
Wow.
It's a very long show.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Awesome. So now, so now you're in the year where now you've listened to all drummers.
Yeah, I have heard.
And how is that? Can we hear about that?
But so that's I've heard multiple bass players, multiple drummers, multiple lots of people. The drummers, I think you could really tell the difference between Lowell and Andy. Andy hit the drums very hard, I think. He's a very loud drummer. Those versions of Primary and Shake Dog Shake are he had a lot of power to him. I guess I think so far all 4 of them are good. I might say that I like Jason the most, actually, which is a little surprising, I think. Jason, I think when I listened to the 96 shows, I think I was really, anytime he would miss a hi-hat or something, I'd really scrutinize it. As like, this is my reasoning of why Boris and Lowell and Andy are better. But he really rarely ever makes a mistake. It may actually be less than Simon, and Simon makes very few mistakes. Awesome. Robert probably makes the most.
Well, I mean, that's, because I'm a person, I get real tired of the Boris Jason debate, because Jason's been playing in The Cure for 25 years, and they're just, to me, it's like comparing a chocolate bar to a quiche or something. Like, it's just two completely different styles of drumming.
Very different styles.
Yeah, so it's just, I'm curious about like hearing that you've heard so many songs over and over and over and over again.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are certainly some that my wife and I have really thought this is the peak of this song, and so far we haven't found better versions of those. Like a Forest, I think, for one, I found that the versions on the Kissing tour, and also with Faith, I thought that actually also on the Kissing tour, I think were the best versions of those.
Did you have any kind of feeling going into this listening experiment that it was that anyway, or were you kind of surprised by that?
No, I mean, I think I actually thought that the best versions of Faith would be from the Prayer tour, I think was what I kind of just assumed. But I actually found that actually the versions of the Prayer tour actually might be my least favorite versions of it. I didn't like when the drums would drop out and they kind of had like this breakdown, and then it would come back and it would start rocking, and I don't know. I mean, it's all my opinion as well. Like, I find the song Faith like very somber, and then kind of like breaking it down and then starting to rock at the end seemed a little, I don't know. In my opinion, it didn't seem right, but I mean, I'm just one fan. There's other people who probably would hear versions of Faith on that tour and think, well, this is certainly the best version of Faith ever. So,
One thing I noticed, which I actually prefer the way they play, this might be a Jason versus Boris thing, I'm not sure, but the way they played Disintegration, the song, they played it so fast in 89. I like it when they play it slower, like they've been playing since then. So, and I don't know if that was a Jason thing, but I mean, just listen to On Treat and you'll see, it's so much faster.
Yeah.
It's always struck me that they play it two ways, either fast or slow, and I like it fast. It always sounds a bit wrong when it's just that half beat too slow.
Yeah, it feels like it's running out of gas a little sometimes.
But that's interesting. That's good.
Yeah, I actually prefer that. And then the other, do you want to say something about that one, Ian?
Oh, well, I was going to say, but the Deep Green Sea is the same way, where if they started a little too slow, I guess Robert starts the timing. If he's playing too slow, that song about 4 minutes into it is just really, really drags. And, just being the few BPM.
They're like, we got 20 more minutes to go.
You haven't gotten to the click track era, so...
Well, I wonder if that was a reason for it, Maybe Robert listened back to those and was a little bothered by some being, like too fast or too slow, and that kind of just eliminates the problem, something that they're all happy with if you just do it to this tempo click track. Yeah. So, I mean, makes sense.
I think the click track is more for lighting, but still, I vote it. If I could wave a magic wand, I'd get rid of it, because I mean, when are we ever going to hear Forever again?
Sure. But I mean, it seems like they could scrap it just for that one. Like,
just play it last. Yeah, turn it off.
Turn it off for that. Yeah.
What strikes me is you're actually really listening to these. You're not just having it on in the background and doing the ironing. You are sitting down and paying full attention to these, which is quite a feat, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think there's some I think that I don't pay a lot of attention to, where it's by about the third song you realize the sound quality is never going to get any better. As much as I care about the conversation between two teenagers in Michigan in 1984. That one was great, was listening to an entire conversation between probably 15, 16-year-olds.
Oh, geez.
I think it was Michigan.
Yeah.
Maybe Megan was one of them. I don't know.
Yeah, I take back what I said earlier.
But that's, I mean, that's the other thing is like that I find so cool is that I for as much as I've seen The Cure and much as I've listened to The Cure, like I don't have the ear. I don't know when the hi-hat's supposed to hit on a certain song. Like, what do you do? Like, that is so precise, and it's so awesome too. It's so fascinating.
You had mentioned you listened initially while doing the bills. Do you have a ceremonial thing for each one where you light candles and
no. Well, when we did the top tour, I ate magic mushrooms every night and played with the glow stick and
awesome.
No, I actually, I listen now. I think I listen to quite a few at work actually. I'm the only person in my department, so I can listen to music pretty loud. Cool. So oftentimes in the middle of the day, I'll just listen to whatever show is next. Because I can understand that, as much as my wife loves The Cure, as much as most people love The Cure, lots of people might be like, hey, I don't want to hear Want into Club America again for like the 70th time in 2 weeks. I can understand that it pushes the limits of other people's
totally.
Probably.
Do you have an ultimate favorite show so far leading up to 96? One that's just totally surprised you until doing this has stood out?
Probably somewhere there's some shows near the end of the Faith tour I think they're in France, like Lily and somewhere in there. I think those are maybe my favorite shows to listen to. And some of the England and the start of Europe for the top tour. I really enjoyed those a lot.
You had the sound check to the first top tour show, the Newcastle one.
I think I listened to it. I guess I could look and see which ones I don't even know where.
That was the very first top tour one. That was good. That's got Robert ad-libbing to primary in a really cool way.
Edinburgh?
No. Yeah, that was the night after. Yeah, they should have both of them together. Yeah.
I wonder if Ian, have you found some shows where they're just totally off or drunk, or there's a couple of them. There's one that I think I remember, but do you have you found any of those in your listening?
There is one that I think he even specifically mentioned in an interview, that he said it was maybe the last time he thought they were really terrible live. And it's somewhere in I think it might be in England on the Head on the Door tour, but I'm not. It's somewhere in 85, 86. And I think I had read that beforehand. And when I listened to the show, I was like, oh God, yeah. There's been a few, I think, where I've listened to that weren't really good, though I do have to say probably post Kiss Me, there's not really any really bad ones. I think I think the improvement. I don't want to say anything bad about Lowell, because I like Lowell, but I think that especially that 85 to 87, a lot of the mistakes you hear in songs are his, and it makes me sad, and I'm like, I hate saying anything bad about him, because I actually find him to be very nice and he obviously was the co-founder of my favorite band and wrote. I mean, he apparently wrote my favorite Cure song. So
does it tend to lean towards just like keyboard kind of noodlings where you just can't find the spot kind of thing, or because
I think
there would be
there's
more
a
of
few
those.
where
Really,
I think he doesn't seem that he knows. I think also the technology at the time, sometimes the sound of the synthesizers isn't great in some of the live shows. And I think once when Roger came in, which I also coincides with the technology of the keyboards getting better. I think that they sound better. But yeah, there's some of the 85, 86, some of the keyboard sounds are a little
But I think that again, it's going back to like what is it to love your favorite band? Like just like I mean, this is going to sound goofy, but if you love a person, you love everything about it, so you can love their mistakes too. And so like the band The Cure is not like a stone that's just like perfect all the time. It doesn't move, it changes, and the band changes, and it goes through good periods and bad periods. And somebody just shared something from 2019 where Roger was playing The Walk, and it was playing the main part into the thing, and then Robert, but got screwed up. But I think that's really interesting. And there's something that you told me, Ian, which is, it's not controversial, but when I went to visit Ian in Duluth in May, and that's when you were in 92. And one of the things you said was that you didn't like the 92 ones didn't seem so amazing compared to the others. Not that they were bad.
Yeah, I would say that on the second half of the Wish tour, that probably the control that Robert exerts over other members of the band of like how much you can screw around, I feel like he took that control away from Pearl, and that Pearl was sometimes left to play a lot of notes sometimes in small spaces. And I think there were some songs that I felt, especially older songs where you didn't have multiple guitar lines. I sometimes was like, I don't know if I like Pearl's guitar here. But I also don't expect Pearl to have just stood around being like, well, great, Robert, there's one guitar line to this song. You want to play guitar, so I guess I'll just stand here. I understand why he would be like, oh my God, I have to write new parts for these songs. But
especially with
Perry. It seemed a little, it seemed very, the Wish tour seems it kind of seems impersonal at times. And I think that could be the size of the venues. And you can hear the exhaustion in his voice at times as well.
I feel like you can kind of sense even a little of that in show. Even they just seemed like they're kind of getting a little burnt out or something. Just where.
And the interesting thing about show is that the Wish tour started in America, so they should have been fresh. And
the one thing I'll say about show though, and I say this all the time, I think it is the perfect version of Pictures of You. They do Pictures of You absolutely perfectly.
I didn't mean to sound negative on show by any means, but at the same time, it's
if I want to listen to Pictures of You live, I just crank show.
That one's great.
That's funny because I think if I want to hear a night like this live, I think I'd probably listen to the show version.
Yeah, that too.
I actually really like the guitar part in that.
So
I don't know if that was
sax
Pearl
solo out, But, that's awesome. Cool. I guess as we start to wind down, and this kind of fits with the idea of the time machine show there of Craig, you had mentioned your faith. It's something we always love to ask on the air. Is there one that you wish you were at that you, after listening to these, would have been like?
Oh yeah, mine would certainly be somewhere on the Pitcher tour. So I could see Carnage Visors. At least once. I think almost any of the shows from 81 performance-wise, I find very, they're mesmerizing sometimes. So really anywhere from Faith would be great.
No, it wasn't a terribly good quality one. Finding that tape and the person I bought it off completely changed my life. So that has a very big place in my heart as well. That was Bristol. So I'd seen them
which
in
show is that?
1980
I'm having trouble hearing you.
in Leicester, and they played Leicester again in 81. And then a couple of weeks after that, I found a tape for sale of the Bristol show off the same tour. And that's how I met my mate Fitz, and we got into recording stuff and going to the concerts together and everything else that mad life has led me to. So it's, yeah, really good.
Cool. What about you, Arusha? I'm sure I asked you at one point throughout the years, but what is your time machine dream show? Is there any?
Time machine dream. Oh my God. God, I don't know how to answer that. I'm thinking. I mean, because my time machine dream would be to go back to 1996 Fairfax. But I was there.
Yeah, I guess Ian was there. I was there. We could have all hung out.
And you were there, and Craig was there, right?
Yeah, I was there.
Because I was like some magical mystery. That was like, first of all, a bunch of us were sitting there. We got invited into sound check because we were waiting outside, and we just got escorted in, which is insane. And then I looked before we started this interview. Because what I remembered about the show is that we were already getting emotional because we thought it was the last tour ever. And Ian and I had gone through this experience of being the kids who had never met The Cure and were crazy, and we thought we were going to go to 5 or 6 shows. Cut to the end of the tour, we're on the freaking guest list, which was insane. And we went to like 15 shows, and we had met all these people. We had highs and lows, and ran red lights and not enough sleep and, whatever. And so we go into sound check, we see the sound check, and then we leave. And also it's a beautiful amphitheater, and there's trees, and it's sort of, I remember it being kind of overcast, but maybe that's me making it up because they opened.
Fairfax was inside.
Was it?
Yeah, it's like a...
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm confusing it with Merriweather, but I think the reason why I'm having that false memory of it is because they opened with Plain Song. And at that time, from 1986 to 96, of course, since I missed Disintegration, I had never seen it before. And so I was like, oh my God. And then I looked.
They hadn't played it.
They hadn't played it since Disintegration. Since 1989.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's cool.
You remember that? I mean, Ian, you listened to that show recently, right?
Yeah, it sounds actually that it's really good for being dusted off after 17 years. That show is really good. That there's quite a few good songs on it. It's one of the better American swing shows, actually.
Sweet.
Craig, was that your doing?
There's a lot of people that covered that show. So.
Yeah, I think actually the one that I heard was from Jamie, I believe. Mm-hmm. I think.
I wish I got to a trilogy show. That's my time machine dream.
Mm-hmm. Oh, trilogy.
Yeah, that have been.
God.
I guess.
Yeah, I wish that too. Actually, but
I guess if we own the time machine, you could hit up numerous shows, right? Why stop there?
I don't. I have to say, I don't think that I would trade going to Trilogy for any other show. Actually.
Yeah.
Oh!
That actually maybe. It's definitely one of the 3 best shows I ever saw.
Yeah.
By them, I would say that the Chicago 2016, the Berlin trilogy, and actually the night before in Hamburg in 2002, or maybe the 3 best shows I actually have seen.
Cool.
In person. That Hamburg was very weird. They just randomly played what you had no idea what they were going to play next. So it was pretty interesting.
The Chicago one you mentioned, that hurts my soul because I know you're talking about the first night, and I went to the second night being like, they're going to be even better tonight. And they played,
God! I thought you went to both of them.
No, I only made the second one.
Oh.
And the first one was what it was all about, right?
Yeah, that, yeah. I kind of lost my shit when they played the top. Oh my God.
Yeah, and that the trilogy shows, that was after, at that point, Ian and I had gone to a bazillion shows together from 96 to 2000 and had all these crazy memories, and then Ian's like, I'm going to trilogy, and I'm like, I have no money. So I didn't go, and I was real upset about it. Now I wish I would have like sold my TV to go, but
it's because I skipped the summer 2002 festivals. I was gonna go, and I thought, you know what? I don't think I have enough money to do this, so I actually didn't go, and that was the only way I had enough money to go to Trilogy. Because if I had gone to the summer, there's no way I would have been able to go.
One of my favorite Cure concert moments was 2002. So I saw 3 of those shows over there. They were in Germany, right? One in France and 2 in Germany. So that Glauschau show is out in Eastern Germany. It's called Wood Stage. So it was outside in a forest, and they closed with a forest. And it was not a lot of people. I mean, 2,000 or 3,000 people maybe. It was so cool to watch them play a forest in a forest.
That's awesome. I guess along the lines of a forest too, do you feel like that would be my guess is the song that's mutated or changed the most through your multiple listens, Ian? Would you say that is?
Yeah. It's one of the songs that if they don't play it, it's really noticeable. Like you'll get to the end of the show and be like, wait, it's the same with In Between Days. There's a few shows here and there where they don't play it, but it kind of saves a forest, and In Between are kind of the two. Although In Between Days is exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's never longer, shorter.
Right.
Whatever. But yeah, a forest is, it's really, I think right now it's a little Pink Floyd, I think, what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
Where I'm at in 96, they're kind of long, and I think after.
Well, they go into Forever a lot in 96.
Yeah,
right?
There's quite a few, either Forever by itself or Forever coming, after a forest. And actually the other night, I just listened to a version of a forest where instead of going to the dun dun dun, it just speeds up like Forever and just ends in complete chaos.
That's cool. Well, I guess as we start to wind down further, do you think, since you guys have mentioned you're going to the Euro 2022 shows, you're going to come out of retirement and do some bootlegs for these, or done with it?
No, I've not taken a gig since about 19. Since the Wish tour, I guess.
It's been a while, yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I've gotten some pressure from my taping friends because Italy is usually not very well covered, so they're like, "Oh, you got to tape those shows." But for me, I really stopped taping when things became more available. When you could go on YouTube and watch something. Same thing with all the old videotapes I had. It's like, if I can go on YouTube and watch it, why am I keeping a VHS or an old cassette tape around?
Right. Like a whole video version by the time you get home,
Yeah, and the idea kind of at my age, like, standing up front and not being able to move for 3.5 hours or say a word is, I'd rather enjoy the show.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I remember seeing you, Craig, at like some sound check we were in 2000. You were like staring, not moving, and I was like, what is wrong with you?
Gotta be as still
I
as
had no
possible.
idea.
Yeah, was that like San Diego or?
Yeah, you were just like staring, like I think you were probably like, don't talk to me, don't say anything, because I was like, why do you seem so stiff?
Didn't really anal about it. Yeah,
it's too bad that you didn't record the sound check in Fairfax.
Oh yeah, I didn't make it. I was I was driving with some people, and they were like late. We were driving up from Richmond, and we barely got there.
Oh, okay.
Every time. Awesome. Well, I guess we wish you luck, Ian. On the conclusion, we'll check back in on you in like 3 years, maybe.
We should do another check-in post American.
Yeah.
2020 2023 tour, maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Let's see where you're at.
That would be, something a little closer.
Yeah. Sounds good. Awesome. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. As we wrap up, is there anything we can plug for everybody on here? And you got projects you're working on and such?
I mean, I want to try to broadcast my adventures in a way, and interview people if I can, and put it on the YouTube. You know, the reason why Push isn't on YouTube is because that means then I don't own it, and I'm not going to do that to my friends. You know what I mean?
Right on.
So
yeah.
You're going to film some interviews with Cure fans on these next.
I'm going to try. I'm going to see what my energy allots. I'm trying to plan to think, you know, because like all of us, like I'm older, my eyes don't work as well. You know, if I can get like some young buck to like even take their iPhone and film me talking to somebody, that's great. But a lot of it is like, how do I do this efficiently? How do I do it so anyone's going to care? I would like to interview people before and after the gigs. I'll do what I can inside, but I'm not going to kill myself. I'm going to enjoy the show. Plus, like what Craig is saying, there's going to be a phone bootleg of every single concert, and for me, it's the experience. It's these conversations. It's the fact that like my friend Ian, who tried to buy my Cure shirt in 1989 off me. That's how we met.
Nice.
Now, 25 years later, listening to every single bootleg in order, scrutinizing every hi-hat note, every guitar.
Excellent. Well, okay.
Are you still having fun? Can I ask that? I mean, is it still fun, Ian?
I am. I think there are sometimes there will be kind of a group of 3 to 5 shows that, you know, it'll be almost the same set list, and then the encores will only be the pop encores, and so there'll be, you know, a whole show where maybe the only song from any of the kind of the sadder stuff is maybe only primary. So, you know, everything else is let's go to bed. And some of those kind of after a while, I'm like, oh, like if they would switch the set, but then, you know, the next night they'll come out and be like, hey, we're going to play the same 4 songs. And then we're just going to play all of whatever for no discernible reason. So I mostly enjoy it. Sometimes it's a little much sometimes.
Fair enough.
Well, and I feel like I can't walk away from it because I'm never going to finish it. And I'm one of those people that I really want to finish it.
Yeah.
Like I collect records, and someday I'm going to have every version of a Forest.
Right.
And then I will be complete and finished. So now that I've started it, I have to listen to all these. And so if on days where I don't completely enjoy it, it is all right, because overall I really enjoy it. And it's really been great. It's kind of reinforced my love.
Awesome. Yeah, that's kind of the final question too, in the sense of if it makes you more in love with it, you know, even like this podcast by the end, I was like, I'm going to end up just hating the Cure by the end of this. It's like, it's been the complete opposite, you know, it's just like nerding out on it that much more makes you love it more. So
now I just need to get a note to Robert and say like, these are 8 songs that you don't play anymore that were always really good, and you should just play them for because everyone wants to hear a part and
totally
in her head. And
that's great.
Whatever.
Cool. Any projects you got to promote there, Suzi? Anything? Nah, good.
No, not really. Life's just plodding along. No,
cool.
Nothing really.
Well, thank you for all your past bootlegs. I'm sure we've all listened to them, whether we know it or not. And same with you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's all about spreading the love, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. So, Craig's gonna hook us up with a special little treat to close out the show, right? So you sent over a recording for us. We're gonna play in its entirety as we sign off for you guys. But do you want to set up the clip and anything that you would like to promote? But of course,
Yeah, nothing to promote from me. But this was a special thing that happened in '96, right at the LA show. August 11th, I believe it was. So this is an interesting show because Robert had to fly back to England, right? And he actually bailed, I think, before the show ended, and Wayne Hussey came on stage, and there's even a photo of Perry at the microphone, which is interesting. I have to go back. I don't know if Ian listened to that one, but I got to listen to what Perry was doing in the microphone in that one. I haven't gone back and checked that. So one of the things that happened, it was a surprise. I didn't know about it, is that Robert came on before the show and did 2 songs completely acoustic. He did Fire and Cairo and Boys Don't Cry. And this time I was on time. It wasn't like Albuquerque where I missed the beginning. I was on quarter and captured this, and I was right by the front speaker, so it sounded pretty good, and love listening to it from time to time, and I wanted to share it with everyone.
That's great. Yeah, the quality's awesome. It sounds like it's right there in the cafe, solo acoustic Robert, which we don't hear.
He had to leave, so they wanted to move the show up a half an hour so he could go to the airport or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Got to give it the extra time. They got to get in that full length there. And people were flipping out, of course. You know, there's people like at the grabbing drinks and food, and Robert comes out and everybody's like, what the heck's going on here? People were scrambling all over. Yeah.
Yeah, and the quality of this one that you're posting is actually much better than the version of the show I listened to.
Awesome.
So,
well, I've got that's my little project that I want to do for myself. So I've got like archives of all the recordings that I have and from others and everything, and I want to go through and use the audio tools that I have at my disposal these days, which is a lot easier to do, and make them sound a lot better. So
yeah,
I tweaked this one a little bit for this.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, to start, I figured let me start with this one. It's acoustic, and so I tried to make it sound as good as I could. But yeah, I want to go through and kind of like what Ian's doing. Maybe Ian and I should talk about this. Like, what are some of the best performances in terms of quality and just performance? And I kind of want to go back and make my own little mix of all the greatest stuff and make it sound as good as I can. So this is like the first try at that.
I think I had made notes that so far that I thought 155 shows were definitely worth listening to again, either because of
only 155.
only 155. And
is this as soon as you finish?
Through November of '96, but yeah, either because the set list was really strange, or the sound quality is really good, or the performance, regardless of the sound quality, is so good that it, there's some where you get these versions of Forever and they might sound terrible, but the version is so good that you're going to listen to it over and over again.
Well, maybe we can release Ian's Hot 100 up to 96 for the Holy Hour.
Definitely. Yeah, keep us posted on any other further tinkering.
Our resident librarian.
Yes. Sounds great. And definitely feel free to keep us posted on any of the upcoming tour stuff that you guys check out, and would love to have everyone back on in whatever form in the future. Thank you so much for chatting with us today and sharing your do you have a name for this, Ian, by the way? Do you tell like people I've been calling it Ian's Epic Cure Journey, but I don't know if
I think it's just the thing. My kids are used to it now.
Okay, the thing, yeah.
I've heard Mike and I do and Boys Don't Cry a lot.
But yeah.
It's awesome. A good reminder that there's some people doing really great things that aren't online.
Yeah.
It's something that somebody's doing like purely is some weird fucking like nerdy adventure.
Totally.
Yeah, it is extraordinarily nerdy. It's maybe the nerdiest thing I've done in my life.
Only maybe.
I'm all right.
Got some contenders. Yeah, it's good. It's good. All right, well, we'll sign off here as we launch into this wonderful recording by Craig, Robert, solo acoustic, playing Fire in Cairo, into Boys Don't Cry, from the Holy Hour. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll say so long. Talk hard. So
Yeah, I don't think I can get used to this actually. I need them. I think we should get the others on now.
All right, again, a very special thank you to Craig for not only joining us, but lending us this amazing bootleg that he has recorded of these two awesome songs at this very rare moment. And a very special thank you to Suzi for joining us all the way from the UK for this chat. And Arusha for putting all this together and making sure we track down Ian and get the scoop on this epic Cure bootleg journey he's been on. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm banking on the fact that you did not turn off this podcast yet because of those two lovely songs in that bootleg, because we do have a little bit of wrap up. I talked to Ian again after we recorded, and he wanted to make sure I stressed a few points that we didn't cover in the podcast. So on behalf of Ian, he wanted to make sure you guys all knew that he has compiled a YouTube playlist of that 150 or so shows that he would love to listen to again, and suggest that those are awesome ones for you guys to check out too, if you don't want to take on the full experience like he is doing. So I have a link for that. I'll put it on this episode on our YouTube page, since you're going to YouTube anyway to check it out. You can check that out there, or on our Facebook page you can find the link when we post this episode. And he said he tried to get at least one show from various shifts in set list, lineup changes, and get at least one version of each song they played on each tour. So lots of stuff cool to check out over there, and he says he's going to keep adding to it as the experiment progresses. He thinks he'll be on to the Dream Tour by Labor Day. Also, he wanted to give a very big shout out of how grateful he is to all the tapers and bootleggers out there that specifically compiled the Cure for All website in which he was conducting this experiment, and cure-concerts.de. Those are the two main ones that he's pulling from. So giant thank you. And I think we can all also agree to thank all the tapers out there that have done the dirty work and captured these great moments in Cure history. So totally agree with you there. And then he wanted to make one final point that we didn't quite cover in our conversation somehow, but it's a great point. He said he just wanted to give some kind of like shout out to the Cure in the sense of how seamless the transitions are from members that came and went or switched instruments throughout these live shows. And as he's listening to it, just realizing how short of a period of time some of them had to even, jump right in, and they're not small gigs by these later ones when these guys are joining them. We've talked about that with Perry and Jason and how they didn't have a lot of time to be comfortable in the new bands or their positions necessarily, but their performances really meet and pass public expectations and personal expectations, he says. He said the momentum that starts with Head on the Door as a live band may have had a few hiccups, like he mentioned, but having Simon as the anchor really guides them overall. And you can hear how he directs the band even when other members are having an off night, like singing Faith during a forest, or when the newer members were unsure of rarely played songs. The work ethic is very apparent, and especially when you listen to the 1990 and 95 Glastonbury shows. All right, so those are the ones where we've talked about where Perry and Jason were fresh in the group at that point. And those are big, like I said, big shoes to step into and big shows to step into. So great point there from Ian as we close out. And again, a very special thank you to Ian for sharing all this with us. And if you could hold on just one more minute, I'd love to give a giant shout out to our loyal, faithful Patreon crew and tell you what's on the horizon for the show. Our Patreon consists of Donna, Craig, Jeff Hilton, Jeff Cortland Jones, Suzanne, Ben, John, Allison, Alan, Dione, Namicio, Danny, Coulter, and our newest member, we love to welcome Dana. Dana was back on the episode with Arusha where they talked about Cure mailing list and such. You might remember Dana. Welcome, Dana. And Scott, our fellow Rebel scum, can be found every week on the Sarlacc Digest. That's an all Star Wars podcast. The live shows air every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube, or you can catch the replays everywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. They have been really cranking out some exceptionally great episodes lately as we inch our way towards the new series Andor. They cover all the best topics in Star Wars discussions. They weed out all the stupid rumors. They fill you in on, all the new toys and books coming out, and are the absolute best with their line talk as they speculate on upcoming episodes and storylines and how they will all connect or don't connect. A lot of times the theories they come up with are even better than the ones that really happen. So it's like two stories in one. So don't miss out and join me. I'll be over there in the chat room most weeks on YouTube every Wednesday night. Go on over, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Starlight Digest. Kate at CureThreads.com has a stunning website full of all your favorite Cure shopping fantasies. T-shirts, covers, cell phone cases, mugs, all kinds of things, all of which feature her original Cure-inspired artwork. She's gonna have some spooktacular Halloween sales coming up soon, so keep your eyes peeled. She's already put up some new super rad candy-striped lullaby socks that you don't want to miss out on. So much cool stuff. Go have a browse over at CureThreads.com. Lisa says, check out DickensYYC.com. It's the website for a totally rad music venue up in Calgary that hosts a wide range of live shows and events. Just because summer's wrapping up doesn't mean that they're slowing down. Live shows by Good Riddance, Monuments, Crafty Cuts, and a bunch of cool Pride events are starting out the month of September over there. Go to DickensYYC.com to see the full list of shows and details. And also follow them on Twitch to be a part of some of the cool live stream action they do. Matt says, don't forget, blood is what makes the world turn. Well, not the actual world, but keeps you alive on the world that's actually turning. And you're going to need blood if you want to be on this planet and stay alive. And the day might come where you do need blood. So help each other out and download the Red Cross Blood Donor app. It's free, it's easy to use. You can schedule your appointment, donate some blood, save some lives. And of course, our man Chaz has been consistently hooking you all up with super rad Cure shirts over at 17secondsshirts.bigcartel.com. So don't miss out. Follow his Instagram. It's a little easier, 17_seconds, and you can see what's currently up and what's coming up for pre-order. Don't be stuck with some generic Cure shirt from Hot Topic, and get one of Chaz's. It's a conversation starter. I even ended up talking to this guy at the deli at the grocery store about the Cure, just because I was wearing one of his rad Cure shirts. He says, "Do you really like the Cure, or are you just wearing that because it's a cool shirt?" 1, I said, thank you. 2, I was almost offended. But, you know, I wasn't going to miss out on an opportunity to have some Cure talk, even at the deli. I was like, do you really like the Cure? Bitch, don't even give me that tone. But I was like, of course I like the Cure. So, yeah, anyway, check out Chaz's other podcast, too, Excommunication Station. Antonio also has another podcast called Nobody Speaks. Check both out. They're excellent podcasts. And thanks to you guys for listening. This has been episode 199, so you know what that means. Number 200 is coming up next. Hoping to have Chaz and Antonio on here. We're going to rehash all our epic glory that this podcast has brought us from episode 1 to 200. I had friends that tell me, man, you're never going to make it past 20 episodes doing an all-Cure podcast. We're just getting warmed up, y'all. So don't miss out. Follow us on Instagram, specifically after you're hearing this, because there's going to be some announcements about that 200th episode. So you'll get the updates instantly. Subscribe on Apple, YouTube, all those places that let you subscribe. Follow our Facebook page and check out the extra little links and tidbits that accompany each episode. And if you want to just get in touch with me directly, always welcome to email me at gavinconnor@gmail.com. So until then, we'll see you over at the 200th episode marker. Thanks for listening. Talk hard.